recorded.
Thank you. I'd like to call the village board meeting for the village of Ashwabnen to order for Tuesday, June 28th at 6:01 PM. Roll call, please.
President Kardasky.
Here.
Trustee Paul.
Here.
Trustee Kubaki.
Here.
Trustee Zerbal.
Here.
Trustee Krieger.
Here.
Trustee Flukie.
Here.
And Trustee Service.
Here.
Please stand for the pledge.
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And please remember our men and women throughout the world in uniform. I have no changes to the agenda. I need a motion to approve, please.
Move as presented. Second.
Motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Action on open and closed minutes. I will start with the first one from the regular meeting of May 24th, 2022. Motion to approve, please.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion and a second to approve those minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 5B, the board meeting of June 7th, 2022.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion and a second to approve those minutes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 5C, the village board special meeting of June 24th, 2022.
Oh, yeah, that was a hot one. Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve those minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And then all of the closed session minutes from May 24th, I need an approval on that one too.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve those closed session minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. 6, comments from the public must be limited to items not on the agenda, must state your name and address, limited to 5 minutes. The board's role is to listen and not discuss the item. Personnel issues cannot be discussed nor individuals named, and the board is not able to take action at this meeting. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak on anything not on the agenda? Any comments on something not on the agenda? Anybody up on the video that would like to speak on anything not on the agenda? Hearing none, we will move on. Written communication or announcements. So I'm going to start this. I just wanted to tell everybody, let them know that we're losing our Public Works Director. Friday is his last day. I've had the privilege of working with him for 17 years. I've been on this board. Just a great guy, and we'll miss him. So I just wanted to say that. Thanks, Doug. So, anybody else have any written communications?
I'd like to say I got company up here tonight. You too, Chris.
There you go. Okay, moving on. Action on the consent agenda. Action on operators' licenses. Action on the annual renewal of a conditional use home occupation license located at 1394 Bruce Lane. The general fund financial report, May year to date. The investment report, budgeted expenditures, and the department reports. I need a motion to approve, or if anybody would like something taken out and discussed.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. 9A, public hearing regarding ordinance 06-4-22, rezoning parcels VA-372 and VA-373, 484 Dutton Avenue from R1 one-family residence to R2 two-family residence. Aaron.
All right, I'll just bring it up on screen here for reference. The public hearing is for the, as indicated, two parcels, VA 372 and VA 373 at 484 Dutton Avenue, from R1, one-family residence, to R2, two-family residence. After the item was posted to Minitrack for purposes of the agenda, I was contacted by the applicant and the owner. The owner has received an offer on the property, and that offer is through a VA loan, and he's requesting now that the property remain zoned R1. So when we get to the action item, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on the public hearing right now, but the applicant and the owner is requesting that the action be denied to maintain the R1 zoning for the offer he has in place at this time.
Okay. So I need a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 9B, public hearing regarding ordinance 06-5-22, rezoning 1680 Grant Street, parcel VA-L202-2 from R1, one-family residence, to R2, two-family residence. Aaron?
As indicated on the map on the screen, this is currently a vacant parcel at the far south end of the village on Grant Street. There's a small drainage way that flows south to north through the property. This is proposed for the 3 Putt Meadows subdivision plat, which will be later on the agenda. The proposal is to develop 60 total units of two basically attached two-family dwellings, similar to what we see at Alden Station. So the requested rezoning to accommodate those two-family dwellings is to rezone the property from R1 to R2, two-family residence.
Okay, is there anybody here who would like to speak for or against this project? Would you please come up to the mic, state your name and address for the record, please?
I'm Mike and Josh with Mountain Associates, 400 Security Boulevard, Green Bay, Wisconsin. Just representing Al Huss, the property owner, or John Huss, sorry. So just if you have any questions, I'm available to answer anything that you may have.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak for or against this project? Yes, Tom, could we have your name and address for the record, please?
Tom Peters, 1139 Spring Lake Drive in Deep Here. We live in the condo project across the way that was, I'm sorry.
Cross Grant Street?
Right across Grant Street. And there's a large lake/retention pond. We have had issues with water flowing north under Grant through the golf course because of what has been done to that parcel that you're proposing to build on. The concern that the residents have is that we can improve the flow of water through that. And I do understand that there's going to be 2 retention ponds included in the development. But that creek bed, I'm assuming and hoping, I guess, that that will be cleaned out and sufficiently sloped to allow the free flow water. One of our biggest problems with Spring Lake is the lack of outflow through that. And we get, at times, and we've got it right now, we're a ton of algae. So that's, I guess, my concern. And and then the other, I guess I would say, is the load of traffic on Grant Street. We have a dangerous situation on the corner of Shadow Ridge and Grant right now. And this is, I think, going to exacerbate that issue. So,
Okay, thank you for your comments. We'll address that at the action item. Anybody else would like to speak for or against this project? Okay, take a motion to close the hearing.
Move to close the hearing.
Second.
Motion and a second to close public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. 10A, action regarding ordinance number 06-4-22, rezoning parcels VA-372 and VA-373, 484 Dutton Avenue, from R1 one-family residence to R2 two-family residence. So we heard before what Aaron had mentioned. So do we just need a motion to not rezone?
Correct. A motion to deny the rezoning would be appropriate.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to deny this rezoning. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. 10B, action regarding ordinance number 06-5-22, rezoning 1680 Grant Street, parcel VA-L202-2, from R1 one-family residence to R2 two-family residence. Aaron?
All right, I will just share my screen again and bring up the map for reference purposes. There you can see it. In terms of the public hearing comments, this is the Spring Lake area down here in town of Lawrence. This is the creek that flows, as I mentioned, from south to north through the property into the golf course. One of the conditions of approval on the subdivision plat that will come forward in a later agenda item at tonight's meeting is actually item number 2, receipt of proper WDNR permits and approvals and cleaning of the tributary to ensure proper water flow prior to deeding of Outlot 1 to the village. So that is a required condition of approval as identified on the subdivision plat when that comes forward for review. In terms of the traffic, certainly traffic is a concern. That is a county highway. The subdivision plat was provided to Brown County Highway for their review, and they actually approved the driveway access points on Grant Street or County Highway G.
Okay.
Aaron, how many driveway access are there?
10.
Let me check here quick.
Two families, so it'd be 20.
Nope, so those are individual lots. So each lot will have one unit on it, so it'll be 10 driveways.
10 driveways. So
okay.
does that mean they're building 20 places to live?
Nope, that's 10 units. So each
10
one,
units, 10 driveways.
correct. Each one of the lots is actually splits a duplex in half.
Okay, understandable. Well, my answer to traffic is, without traffic, there's no development. Without development, we're not bringing any tax base. So, and looking at this, the driveway out of the Ridgeway there is far west from the traffic in that area, so I don't see a problem there. The road was designed to carry traffic. There's no other questions. I'll move to approve as presented.
Under discussion, or before? Go
Okay,
ahead, Steve.
I need a second, and then we can,
I'll second that.
okay. Discussion.
Yeah, I voted for this at Plan Commission. I did have concerns with Grant Street and the speed on Grant Street. You know, Grant Street is going to be a major arterial, maybe not a major, but a significant arterial. And it carries a lot of traffic from the west. There's a lot of development out there. It's going to be a busy road. It's just the nature of the beast. That being said, I've had some conversations with others, and the driveways onto Grant Street from those 10 units there, I think is going to be kind of problematic at points in time as well. I'm not sure what you do to solve that, but that is a concern. Number one, I'm concerned about the speed. I'm not so concerned about the volume of traffic because it's going to be a busy street. It is, and it's going to get busier, and we're not going to create another street somewhere in between there. It is what it is. You got the street to the north there and the street to the south, and then you got Grant in the middle, and they're all going to carry significant volumes of traffic from the west as those areas develop. But the concern about all those driveways, 10 of them in a row, boom, 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 I reserve the right to change my mind. I'm not sure if I got new information or I just reconsidered. But that is a concern. Just my thoughts.
And
Aaron,
I'm sorry.
some time ago, we reduced the speed on that road, if I remember right, and we took truck traffic off of there.
No, that was Fernando,
Or
I
Doug,
think.
are you the,
Yeah, that was Fernando Drive to the north.
that was Fernando?
Fernando
Okay.
Drive was,
Well, Fernando, okay, so
was
this
switched
carries the
to a
load of
local road.
Fernando then. All right,
Correct.
I'm sorry. Okay. I can understand that. It's a main thoroughfare north or east-west through the county, but, I'm still holding to my comments on it.
Okay, I would need, one of the residents also would like to talk, so I would need a motion before we do allow that to open the floor for him. But Tracy, if you'd like to.
Yeah, but just quickly, I'd just like to add to my concern with the traffic. Mr. Peters, I agree with what you're saying. I did go look at the site, and if any of you have gone out there, it is a 2-lane rural road with a 3-foot shoulder on it. And we're going to be putting 10 access points, actually 12 access points out of the subdivision to get out onto Grant Street. At Shadow Ridge, is that the name of the road coming out? I did go out there, and it is oversized, but watching people go in and out of there, it's tough. It's tough to get out. The speeds are very high on Grant Street. Yeah, and the traffic coming from the east, there's a lot of traffic also coming from the east, and there is a hill coming just past Sand Acres that you literally have trouble seeing the cars coming over that hill. And we're going to have 12 access points onto Grant. I'm just really surprised that Brown County approved those 10 access points onto Grant Street. The other concern I have is for bicyclists and pedestrians getting out of there. As you all know, I bike just about anywhere, and Grant Street is one of the scariest roads to bike on, and I don't go out there lightly because it's hard. It's very hard to bike out there. And my concern is the residents living in this development. If you want to get out of there by foot or by bike, you have to go on Grant Street. And it is not a pleasant place to be on foot or bike or even motor vehicle. So I think we really need to rethink this. It's putting too much in one spot, I believe. And then I know it's a really tough property to develop. It's got the ESA areas, it's got the water problems, but I just think we're putting way too much into this site. And for the safety of the residents in the future, I just can't approve this.
Okay, so I need a motion to open the floor if we would like.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to open the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Tom, if you'd like to take the mic, state your name and address again for the record.
Tom Peters, 1139 Spring Lake Drive, De Pere, Wisconsin. The concern with the road is the speeds are high. I think that lowering the speed limits, once you get over the hill, it's down to 35. And they patrol that fairly regularly because there's a whole lot of people coming over that hill at 45, 50 miles an hour. So that may be part solution. Getting out from Shadow Ridge is a chore, especially when, like, school buses and such. And, we want to have children, and they need to go to school. So I don't know what could be done. I will speak to Paul Fontecchio at the county and see if the county has any solutions, because I recognize that's the county's property. Don't know if a pseudo frontage road could be built into, or maybe an alternative, put a sidewalk, and like is being done on Main Street in the village. And of course, it terminates, but that may be a way for certainly pedestrians and bikers to stay off of Grant Street.
I know internally, we talked with Aaron, and talked about a trail or a sidewalk on that northern side of Grant Street, but if you do that because of where you have to put it, it like is like 5-10 feet from their front door.
Oh,
So it would be quite difficult until they redo the road. Once they can redo the road, that makes it totally different. Let me ask you this, Aaron. Do you think that we could work with the county and see if they could lower that, if it's 35 more to the east, and see if maybe we could work with the county and have that speed limit? Because we all know if the speed limit's 45, people are going between 50 and 55,
exactly.
right?
Certainly, we can certainly reach out to Brown County Highway regarding that request to kind of get their feel for it.
Right.
Or what about a traffic signal at that, if you go farther west or farther east and stop the traffic at some point, at least people can wait till the light changes to zoom out, you know what I mean? You know it's going to happen.
Well, yes, and if you put it in the middle, I mean, we got a stop sign at Packerland, and then
So maybe
nothing until you
before
hit
that.
the roundabout on the east side of 41. And
I don't know if it's a county highway, if you can put a signal or not.
I don't know,
So in terms of the county highway, when I reach out to county highway about the speed limit, I guess what I'll do is I will ask to see what their plans are for reconstruction of Grant Street, just to see how far out that is. Once they look at design and engineering for Grant Street, they may look at some sort of traffic control at Shadow Ridge. I'm not sure what that is, or maybe that's kind of their call since their facility. But I certainly can reach out to them regarding that question.
the county, as the village, has a significant amount of ARPA funding. And of course, the county was given $51 million. We budgeted for 22 to use 23 million, leaving 27 for 24. Well, all the committees, and I'm on the admin committee, in short, the 5 committees came up with a laundry list of $117 million. So there's tons of very worthy projects, but safety has got to be a prime consideration. And this is kind of scary. It's one thing with those 2 roads, but now those driveways, because, and my guess is those driveways aren't going to be very long, so there's no really possibility of the person exiting their garage, turning the vehicle around, and come out with the front facing south on the Grant Street, so they got good visibility.
I think I'd like to add something too, the more that I'm thinking about this. If they have any sort of birthday party, graduation party, whatever, in any of those 10 units, where are those people going to park?
Grant Street.
Yeah, that's my point, is that's not going to be ideal. Aaron, a question for you. Is there a possibility, and again, I don't know where even the village ordinances stand on this, and I know that there's kind of water easements behind every one of these lots. Would there be a possibility of flipping these units and doing an alleyway? That way only losing one lot to the east that would then go out to the road for the alleyway to exit instead of going out on Grant. And again, I don't know the ordinances, I don't know where any of that stands, so I'm just asking the question off the top of my head.
From an ordinance standpoint, it's certainly doable. We'd probably do something like that through a planned unit development process, which gives us flexibility in terms of our dimensional standards, setbacks, things like that. But that would probably be more of a question for the engineer in the project to see if there's adequate room. Right. And that's something I have to kind of look through and see if that's even possible to design.
Because I almost feel like if you flip this and did an alleyway behind those lots, that then could come out, it might eliminate a lot of the safety issue for sure. I realize there are other issues with the alleyways, okay, that can be safety issues as well, but it's a thought.
that maybe that might be some sort of resolution.
Well, at least it'd be low speed in the
Correct.
alley.
I don't know the possibility of it, like you said, Aaron. I don't, I'll be quite honest, I should have brought my glasses. I can't even really see these when I expand them. So anyway, I can't read any dimensions, so that'd be my thought.
It's funny, all this conversation didn't come up when Spring Lake was built, and then after Spring Lake was built, they put in a bunch of apartment homes there. The apartment homes come out on that Shadowway or Ridgeway, whatever that Main Street is, and there was no comment there. We're building 10 homes there, with 10 driveways, probably 20 people. If parking's going to be a problem, put no parking on the right side of the road and be done with it. That's their problem, not ours. It's a county road. We can't do nothing till the county does something. All we're doing is talking here and spinning wheels. Get to the county and get some answers.
Well, if we have to wait to talk to the county, I'm not in favor of approving this tonight. I agree that there's some things we need to think out of the box on. And, this type of housing is a good type of housing. We need it. We need some diversity, especially with the cost of housing. It's just that those 10 there, what can we do? What are the options? And for not having his glasses with him, he's come up with a pretty good idea here of thinking out of the box. So with that, maybe we need to spend a little more time on this. The 10 access points, one after another, boom, 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 boom. Yeah, I'm afraid we're going to create something that might be more interesting in the long run than what we anticipate at this point in time.
The uniqueness of this too is this is going on, as Gary said, to a rural road, and it's urban development going on a rural road. And that's challenges right there, because you have people and they're all going out on this smaller road that wasn't designed necessarily to take all this traffic and have all these access points. So if the road was urbanized, a lot of these concerns could go away and a lot of the things that we're talking about could be handled. But because it is not an urban road, we're going to have these issues to tell at one point when it is redeveloped. And it's no different than any other development that occurs in a more rural area. It's just something that we have to think about and make sure it's safe. And that's our biggest thing. I mean, our biggest charge I see is to make sure our residents are safe. And we're creating things and doing things that can allow them to be safe. And I just don't see this development as meeting that goal in my eyes.
I have to say that in Ashwabnen, I've lived on the two busiest streets in Ashwabnen, Oneida and Ridge.
Yeah, but
And,
these are urbanized streets.
it's very busy, but the speed limit's not 45. So I think maybe if the county could reduce that speed. Yes, Joel?
Yeah, just want to kind of add some clarification. So this particular agenda item is the rezoning. So certainly the board has full discretionary authority over zoning regulations, but what I'm understanding based on the commentary from the board is that you're not necessarily opposed to the zoning aspect of changing that from an R1 to an R2 district, which would allow for that kind of twin dominium or duplex style housing to occur there. Where the issue really resides in is more in the platting process, and when we get to the plat and where those dwelling units and those lots will exist along Grand Street. So from a staffing perspective, if the board is agreeable to the zoning, meaning moving it from an R1 to an R2 zoning district, you can certainly make that motion. But you'll have a separate action item tonight as it relates to the preliminary plat. And if you have concerns about how the plat is laid out, then at that point you can table action on the plat, give staff feedback then to go back to the developer and essentially ask them to see if it's even workable for them to reconfigure the plat to remove some of those dwelling units on Grand Street. Based on what I'm hearing, it sounds like it would be agreeable to have those two streets come off of Grant, but then there needs to be an internal network for the dwelling units to access those streets. So basically 2 connecting points onto Grant from public streets in this new development. Private driveways, however, would need to be restricted, if that is what I'm hearing correctly. But again, that would be an action item that would be tied to the plat.
Joel, that's very well put. As I'm listening to everybody, these are very legitimate concerns. And Gary made some good points too, that
you know, obviously as the village moves forward with development, more traffic's going to be, and that's our job to figure that part of it out. And what you just said, Joel, is kind of where I'm thinking is why delay it at this point tonight, where farther on down tonight, you know, we can get this part of it done, and later on down, we can go, hey, we're not ready yet, and at least we got this out of the way, and we don't have to come back and revisit this part again.
Mary, do we have a first and a second on it?
We have a first and a second on the rezoning.
On the rezoning, which this subject is about, not what it could be, disasters we're going to have. So let's vote on the
First of all, we need a motion to close the public comment.
approve to close the floor.
Second.
Motion and a second to close the public comment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, we have a first and a second to approve the rezone. This is not approving the plat, it's approving just the rezone. Okay, does everybody understand that?
Yes.
Any more comments? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Aye. One opposed. Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, 10C, Village of Ashwabnen 2021 Audit Review. Greg Wenholz.
Thank you. So each year we go through our audit, and we have a pretty lengthy process with the audit, and we have partnered with Baker Tilly for the last couple of years now. So John Rader is here. He's going to give you a little bit of review of their findings and the process. So this is a highlight of the year, folks. This is it. Discussion point stuff. So I know you're all excited. So I did hand out this book. It's also in your packet, but it might be easier to reference to have the printed copy. John also has another document that he'll go over as well. So go ahead, John. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Greg. And thank you all for having me here tonight. It's great to actually be here in person. So last year we did 2020, we did both the audit and I did this presentation remotely. And this year we've been on site. So again, thanks for having me. I'm going to spend most of my time, about 10 minutes, going through this handout that Greg just mentioned, some graphs that kind of highlight some of the financial areas for the village as of the end of the year. Before I walk through those, I want to mention a couple things real quick. So the audit actually occurs in a couple different phases. We spend a day or two out here doing some preliminary work where we're testing controls and walkthroughs and reading your minutes and other things like that. We do that November, December, and then we come out for pretty much an entire week during the month of March, early March, and we're actually working through everything that Greg and others have prepared for us, and it's a lengthy list, and they do an amazing job of putting that all together for us. Then we also have a utility team, and they do some work on the specific utility audits or funds that you have, and then we pull it all together, and so Baker Tilly actually prepares the draft set of financials that I think all of you have a copy of that as well. We go back and forth and make sure we're all on the same page with Greg, and then he prepares several documents that manage a discussion and analysis up front. It's like an executive summary, the statistical section in the back. And once we have everything in place, we issue finals. So we just did that on June 17th, and then shortly thereafter, within a couple days, Greg submitted your financials to the Government Finance Officers Association, GFOA, for what hopefully will be, I believe, your 37th year of achieving this award for financial reporting. It's the highest level of achievement you can get in financial reporting, and it's throughout the country and Canada, too. There's two documents that we do issue. I've mentioned the financial statements. The only other thing I want to say on that is we've issued what we call an unmodified or clean opinion. It's a 3-page opinion right in the front of the financial statements that says basically your financials are prepared according to generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP. And so that what that means is all the numbers are materially correct. You followed all the GASBs or accounting rules, and there's 95 of them now. And the disclosures are in there that are supposed to be in there too. That's important to your granting agencies, your bond holders, and others as well. So you want to keep that going for sure. The other document that Greg also mentioned is what we call our audit results, the reporting and insights. It's basically a hodgepodge of things that come up during the course of the audit that includes What our responsibilities are as your auditors, sometimes there's a misunderstanding of what that is. There's different types of audits, forensic audit, control audits, but we're GAAP auditors, okay? And so it explains that a bit more. It talks, there's some required communications in there. If anything came up during the course of the audit where we encountered difficulties or disagreements, or we had to get other consultations, things of that nature, that would be pointed out. There's nothing of that nature pointed out in there. The upcoming GASBs, there's a couple pages on that. The big one next year is GASB 87 regarding leases. There are no new ones that had to be implemented this year, and 2-3 years from now, there's going to be some more. So we'll work with the village to make sure that those are implemented correctly. Also, there's some internal control matters that came up during the course of the audit. Nothing to be concerned about, I would say. We didn't find problems. We just have some recommendations on how to strengthen some of the controls at the village. One of them is regarding financial statement preparation. This is in probably 90 to 95% of our reports that we do throughout Wisconsin, just simply because, as I just said, we prepared your financials, and ideally, you would prepare your own. It's basically an auditing standard that holds governments to the same level of quality as an SEC company. You just don't find that in government. So the standards say, well, if you prepare them, or you have material entries, and we just had a few, then you need to report that. There's also some segregation of duties issues in there, just kind of a general comment because of the size of operations of the village. And then some more specific ones where some controls can be strengthened. And we talked to Greg and staff about those at length. So that's all I have on that report. Unless you have any questions, I'm going to walk through the numbers real quick. Okay. All right. As I said, these are the bar graphs. I think you should all have a copy of this. And the first 2 pages focus on the general fund, and in particular, the fund balance level. As you know, the general fund is your primary operating fund of the village. And in governmental fund balance reporting, you can have up to 5 different categories, and Ashwaubenon has 3. And so, again, looking at this bar graph, I'm going to start on the bottom. You can see that non-spendable amount. The green is 2021, black is last year, 2020. So just under 300,000 in non-spendable, and that's exactly like it sounds. It's amounts that are in your equity or fund balance. In this case, inventories, some deferred specials, long-term receivables that you cannot spend. Okay, you can't apply it to next year's budget or anything like that because it's just not spendable. So that went down about 100,000 from last year. There's a small amount restricted, very similar to last year, and those are some grants. Those are external restrictions placed upon the village by the granting agency. And then everything else is in unassigned, and that's at 5.4 million number. Okay, that's down about $10,000, so just a little bit from last year. And it got there because, as you can see from the summarized income statement in the middle of this page, your actual operating results for the general fund, where you had a loss of 125,000, but you had planned to use in your budget $625,000. So your revenues came in over, your expenditures came in under, and so the net effect is, while even though you had a loss, it wasn't as big as you had budgeted or anticipated. Revenues were up, and the details of all this are in the back of the financial statements in your budget to actuals. You probably saw those. But room taxes are up, building permits, those are the 2 big drivers in that area, and that's what we've been seeing a lot this year in other places we audit too. Expenses, under budget, mass transit, there are some planned budgeted retirements in some of the different departments that didn't occur, so those are under forestry and municipal court, okay? Those are the big drivers there. So what does that mean? If you take that unassigned fund balance, one of the common metrics in governmental financial analysis is how strong is that? How strong is that? And the one way to look at that is basically how long could it survive using that unassigned or unrestricted fund balance to pay next year's expenditures. And the village actually has a policy that's very consistent with that analysis, where it says you're going to try to maintain a minimum of 20%. So as you can see on page 2 here, that green line that's plotted out, you were at 32.7%. That's a really consistent line. That's not bouncing around much. And that's what you want for the general fund. You want consistency. You can see that red line on the 20%, that's your policy. And the blue dots, there are other places that we audit throughout Wisconsin that are of similar size based on population. Okay.
So the blue points are for what other communities have for fund balance, you said, that are similar size?
That we audit, correct. Yep.
That number used to be, of course, many years ago, when I was younger. It was, you shot for 15%, 20%.
It was a lot lower for most places.
And then it went 25 or whatever. Some of these at 41%. Holy.
Yeah, that's very common these
almost,
days. And I think a lot
using the taxpayers' dollars and putting them away when.
Yeah.
It's almost like your piggy bank is too big.
Yeah, there's
But
different
anyway,
interpretations of it. And we always say what it comes down to is create a policy. What's right for one place may not be right for the other. I think,
and you're correct that we are consistent.
Yep.
That's a good trait.
It is. And I think it also, it somewhat reflects the vulnerability of governments because of shared revenues being cut back and levy limits and such over the last several years, where it has gone up a bit. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, page 3. Shifting gears and taking a look at debt on page 3 and 4. So page 3 is a snapshot of what your debt, in particular geo debt, was at the end of the year. As you know, in Wisconsin, the statutes limit you to 5% of your equalized value, and that's at black line, $143 million. That's up 6.7% from last year, so some nice growth. The green line is your geo debt outstanding, and that went down. You didn't issue any new bonds during 2021, but you paid off $4.9 million in geo. Of that $58 million, it's broken down, as you can see in that table below. So most of it is with the village. A lot of it's obviously with the TIFs as well. So you're using, jumping to the back up to the top of this page, you're using 40% of your debt capacity. Last year, that was 47%. And again, the TIFs have a big impact on that. You can see the rest of the different types of debt you have down there. You've got some bond anticipation notes of $1,780,000. That's due in October of 2023. And obviously the lease revenue bonds of the CDA for almost $115 million that are outstanding. Okay. We used to put dots or debt on here of other places we audited for where this was. We quit doing that, but the Wisconsin Policy Forum, a nonpartisan group, has good data out there that has some of that in there, and you can just go to this hyperlink and check where how the village compares to other places, both within the county and throughout the state. All kinds of data, other than just debt too. And then page 4, like I said, another way of looking at debt is how much does the village pay in debt service, so principal and interest, right? And that's that green line plotted out. We compare that, the principal and interest, to non-capital governmental expenditures. So this is just principal and interest in your governmental funds compared to all other expenditures in your governmental funds, excluding capital, trying to get it to apples each year. And so that was 26%. We generally recommend around 20%. You've been a little bit above that. Again, those black dots are other places we audit, so you're pretty much in line with a lot of those other places. There's a spike in 2020 because of a $2.7 million ban or bond anticipation note that came due. Okay, so you're going to see that kind of fluctuation, just like you will in 2023. Again, the common theme here is the amount of debt you have outstanding for your TIFs can have a huge impact. So it's really not fair to compare municipalities, because there's so many different things that make each place unique. It's really more important to see how you manage your own debt load. Okay, so page 5, again, shifting gears one more time, now taking a look at 3 different utility funds. 5 is your water fund, and as it plots out here, the green line are your revenues, your black line are your expenses. So you can see for the last couple of years, the water fund has had an operating loss. You did just get as you I'm sure know, got authorization from the PSC to increase your rates, kind of a phased-in process over the next 2 years. So theoretically, that revenue line or green line should start to go up to exceed the expenses. The expenses have been up the last couple of years due to increased purchased water volume, the costs that are associated with that, the costs of doing that rate study with the PSC, because they do look at things very thoroughly, and miscellaneous maintenance projects. So that operating loss is equated to having an actual rate of return that's negative. You can see that on the top there, negative 11%. Your authorized rate has been at 6.5% for a number of years. So that's kind of a target rate, okay, what the PSC authorizes. With this increase in the rates, hopefully you'll get closer to what the new rate is. Another way of looking at the financial health utility fund is the unrestricted reserves, and this is cash, okay? So unrestricted cash that's in there. How many months of operating cash do you have on hand? Generally, you want to be looking for 3 months for liquidity purposes and another 12 months or so for unanticipated capital needs. So 12 to 15 months, you're at 8.5, which is okay, but it's something that you should probably keep an eye on as well. And that, again, could go up with those increased rates. And then lastly, another way to look at this is how much of your capital or plant, because utility funds, as you know, are very capital intensive, how much of that has been derived from earnings or equity versus debt. And generally, we recommend 50% or more coming from earnings. You're at 85%, so that's pretty solid. Okay. Page 6 takes the same analysis, looks at the sewer fund. And again, because they're so interrelated, you can see that expenses have exceeded revenues for the last couple of years. It's pretty consistent with the volume increases in water. There's also been some expenses, increases in expenses related to the sewer treatment charges that come through to the village. And depreciation has also driven that for the last couple of years. Your unrestricted reserves are at 4.6 there. So same recommendation there, 12 to 15 months. So you are below there. Something to keep an eye on, making sure your rates are appropriate so that you don't get too low on that. Okay. This fund does not have any debt. So lots of debt capacity, not suggesting you issue debt, but you can see where it's at, 100%, okay? And then lastly, stormwater, a little bit different scenario here, where you can see the revenues are exceeding your expenses for net operating income. A little bit decreased in the last couple of years and the revenues because of the ERUs going down. Expenses pretty consistent with the prior years, and you can see your unrestricted reserves are at 14.6 months, so very healthy there. It's kind of typical of the stormwater utility fund where you see those unrestricted amounts go up, and then you incur some capital costs to clean out a detention pond or whatever it may be. If you don't issue debt for that, you use that unrestricted cash and it goes back down, kind of the life cycle. And again, no debt, so 100% equity on that fund too. Any questions on any of the numbers or anything else?
I have no questions. Does anybody have any comments, questions?
I guess a simple question I have, on a whole, us versus people of our size, we're doing quite well.
I think you are. You know, so a lot of places we will go to, they're either, they've got some utility funds that are struggling and the governmental funds are in good shape, or vice versa. And I would say, you know, your general fund is really stable. You have some very active TIFs, if you know, but TIFs aren't so important to look at where they're at now, it's where they're going, trying to project that out and keep an eye on that. That's way more important. And your utility funds, while they're not flush with cash or anything like that, they're you know, they're doing okay. But again, you want to keep an eye on it, just like you did with the water fund and increasing those rates to make sure it's sustainable. Because if they don't, they have to get it from somewhere. So they'll have to lean on your general fund or vice versa.
Good.
Good questions.
I think my comment is thank you to Greg for actually watching over this all the time. Great job, Greg. I mean, to come in with an audit that looks this clean, this good. And I recognize it's the entire staff that ends up doing it, but you're the police guy, so great job.
I would agree with that. And, you know, if I came in here and said there were 50 entries, that'd be a cause for concern. Not so much for the audit, yes, but more so for your purposes, because you're trying to make the decisions based upon the financial records. You want to know that they're in good shape, and they're in excellent shape. And that's important throughout the year, and especially at budget time. So thanks a lot to the village for having us as your auditors. We really enjoy working with everybody here. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. This was information only. Okay. Moving on. 10D, action on appeal of denied operator's license, Christina Bressers. Mr. Patrick.
Ms. Bressers was brought forward to committee regarding her operator's license denial on appeal. Speaking on behalf of public safety on this one, public safety did have a concern for Ms. Bressers for several reasons. Ms. Bressers does have several convictions related to alcohol, specifically operating while intoxicated. My count is there are 3 convictions, 2015, 2005, and I don't know what the first one, but it had to be within 1995, or 1995 to 2000. With that said, the OWIs are obviously concerned for public safety. According to public safety standards, is that they're substantially related to the operator's license, meaning, or given that it is an alcohol-related offense, multiple offenses. In addition to that, public safety did have a concern that Ms. Bressers failed to list all convictions on her application for the operator's license. So with the failure to list all convictions relating to the alcohol-related convictions and the 3 OWIs on her current record, the public safety is recommending denial. There was one more thing at committee that had a concern that they requested public safety look into. There was mentioned by Chief that Ms. Bressers had, I think it was a serving of an underage, if I believe that's correct. There was a sting operation maybe, and there was a citation issued to Ms. Bressers for an underage purchasing alcohol. That was brought forward, and the committee asked the chief look into that, and it was ultimately dismissed. That wasn't taken into consideration for her denial. That was investigated a little bit, and from what I can tell the board is that it was dismissed, and then Ms. Bressers was not convicted of that offense.
Okay, I know that this was, there was a motion at Public Works and Protection to uphold the denial of this operator license. However, as a former small business owner, I have to say that people are struggling nowadays to get employees, and Ms. Bressers has had no issues for 7 years. That's, you know, we're pretty strict on the tenure, but I am going to say, and we'll hear from Ms. Bresser, but Gary mentioned at committee that people need to have a second chance, so.
I know at committee I kind of asked for you to bring some, I figured that's what that sheet was, so I'm very interested to hear that from you.
Okay, I'm Christina Bresser, 1701 14th Avenue, Green Bay. I, was not convicted of that thing. In fact, I'm really proud to say that I just got the letter today, but June 22nd it was sent out from Wisconsin Winds, and I passed their sting. But this is just a list of the ongoing, not necessary alcoholic treatment, but counseling treatments that I'm still going through to continue my life on this earth, I guess.
Okay.
It's
just the ledger. I don't know. It's just got some dates on it.
So can you kind of give us what are the dates, like what have been like over the past year? How many counseling sessions have you had?
Okay.
Things like that.
So I had 3 counseling sessions in September of last year, 2 in October, 1 in November, and then 1 in January of 2022. Right now I'm switching insurances, so I'll have to find a new counselor. But I will find a new.
Did you say last year you had those dates?
These are all from 21 and then 1 from 22. These are just from last year, from September to November.
Okay.
I'm sorry, through
Any
January.
in 22?
The January 28th one Like I said, I was on unemployment, and these were actually free counseling sessions from Walmart when I worked for them. And now that I have to get a different insurance because I'm going off of the COVID insurance, I'll be finding a new counselor. I'm switching insurance in August. So.
Jay, you had some good questions. I'll let you continue.
Yeah, so, you know, I don't want to dig into all the counseling sections and that, but obviously the charges and that, and I'm also going to bring up the location of where in the place of your work obviously brings up a concern with youth and, you know, coming in and things like that at the Jaguar Shell. So I'd just like to hear from you, you know, of a typical day. I mean, how many youth come in there, and have you had instances where people have come up, younger people who have been trying to purchase alcohol?
Not necessarily alcohol, but I do get some of the young kids trying to get the vapes or the disposable e-cigarettes from me, and yeah, that's not going to happen. And as far as alcohol, I haven't had any minors, but, you know, I know when somebody's intoxicated and I can't sell them alcohol.
I'll say that I got caught with my business. Personally, I was there and I got caught in a sting, and it can happen. What happened with me was I actually looked at the kid's ID, but just being in a conversation with them, I just didn't register. You know, just didn't register. And as soon as he left, our former, I forget his name now, but he came right in. He
Yeah.
said, "Oh, Chris," he goes, "you screwed up." And I went, "What do you mean? I checked everybody's ID." It can happen. You know, so who am I to say that you can't make them, you know, one mistake? And it was dismissed. I don't know.
It was. That was honestly, I fat-fingered the key, and then basically I hit to clear it, and when I typed it back in the second time, the kid's birthday was like 10/12 of, I think back then it was, I don't recall the date, but it was you know, 10/12/21 versus 12/10/21, basically, is what I had goofed, and ended up winning that because it was an accident. That's why I didn't get the citation, that's why I got to keep my job.
And then you know, as far as the DUIs, I mean, yeah, 3 is a concern, but it's been 7 years to me. You know, everybody deserves a second chance, and I commend you for turning. You know, I commend you for turning to rectifying your situations, and it's going to be an ongoing battle, I know, but I commend you for that. That's 7 years is
going strong. I don't miss alcohol at all, honestly. I just didn't know how bad it was for me until I...
Yeah. Me personally, I on this one, you know, like I said before, people deserve a second chance, and especially after 7 years. That's a pretty long sentence if we were to deny this.
I had just wanted to get...
Being on the Public Works, the reason she's here is because, and we denied it, we wanted to bring it to the board. And that's the reason for her coming back, which she did make 2 appearances. The only question I have for you, and I give you, I got to compliment you on trying to do this, but why are you still in this business of alcohol? Why? There's plenty of jobs out there.
Well, I was working for Walmart, actually. I got into a job that I really loved. It was picking the pickup orders for people to come and pick up. Well, I have PTSD and I can't wear that darn mask, and I ended up losing my job at Walmart because I can't wear a mask.
I think, Gary, there's a large percentage of businesses and jobs that are going to have beer, at least beer and alcohol involved. You know, this is a whole different, but should gas stations be selling them to begin with, because you got minors walking in all the time? That's a debate right there, but that's not the biggest part of their business by far.
No.
Without a doubt, but, I tell you what, I'm going to make a motion to approve your license. You make one mistake, and you will never serve alcohol again anywhere.
That sounds fair to me.
And like Chris said, 7 years, yeah, it ain't 10 years, but, if you kept clean that long, good luck. But one mistake, you're done.
I understand.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the operator's license for Christina Bressers.
Can I, under discussion, just a question for Christina? Can you continue to work for Shell without your alcohol license, or would you not be able to?
I wouldn't be able to carry on my position, no.
So you would need that to continue to have your job there?
Or I'm fired.
Okay, thank you.
And I do commend you for coming back and bringing back the information and things like that. It shows me that you're really making effort and trying to do the right direction, and to me, that's a lot. That means a lot. And I will make that comment that we don't take this lightly, and we normally do not overturn things like the denials, because we do believe in the chief's rules and things like that. But when we see somebody who is really making the effort, I believe then it is, it's also our duty to understand that and acknowledge that.
I appreciate it.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Does everybody understand it? Any more comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, 10E, action on appeal of denied operator's license, Dominic Coppins. Patrick.
This was also brought forward after an appeal at committee. There was a concern by public safety that Mr. Coppins did not disclose I think he was a current pending OWI, and he did not, appear at committee. Based on his failure to appear and his failure to disclose the OWI, and the OWI being an alcohol-related conviction, the public safety recommended denial.
Is Dominic here?
No.
I'll move to deny it.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to uphold the denial of the operator license for Dominic Coppins. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. 10F, action on reserve Class B beer, Class B liquor license request for 2465 Marina Circle, LLC, DBA Marina Terrace. Chris.
So they are asking for the reserve Class B beer, Class B liquor license. And if this is approved, we will have to get one from Hobart. So you're here to speak on it?
I'm here to represent the.
Okay, and your name?
My name is Dave Tilkins.
Okay, and you're going to be the agent, correct?
Dave, can you say your address?
Yeah, I reside at 3316 Star Creek Court, but I do represent 2465 Marina Circle, where the Terrace is located.
So this license is a reserve, so this is one of the ones that has the higher price tag that we collect from them, and then we in turn turn it over to Hobart. So, any comment?
We had no problem that Public Works with it. I believe you are only going to have it on events that you rent, lease, rent, whatever the word is. It's not open to the public on a daily means by, as far as selling the product. So we didn't have a problem on approving this. It's a clean operation. It's only done on events that they approve.
And they do understand that even if they have a business meeting and they're not selling, that someone has to be on site that has a license, so, and I think all the owners have done the class, so.
Okay.
And if you haven't seen it yet, come by. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I understand.
I've heard. Okay,
Maybe we need to be invited.
I think that would help.
You're officially invited.
This would help approve this really quickly.
okay.
All right, if there's no other questions, I'll move to approve this Class B/Class C liquor license.
And I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve the Class B beer, Class B liquor license for 2465 Marina Circle. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
And this does start July 1st.
Okay, 10G, action on premise changes for Newell Company, Inc., DBA Stage 1017.
So they are asking for two extensions, well, a different premise, I should say, an extension outside for cornhole matches, and then they did put in axe throwing, which is already done and they're doing, but because it's such a drastic change from what was approved, it has to come before the board. And I don't see where they are in attendance tonight.
This is strictly for the cornhole?
For cornhole outside, and then for the axe throwing inside.
And the axe throwing inside. Okay,
Correct.
we had quite a discussion on that. I'm just warning you people, we've talked about axe throwing. Kelly and Jay, I think you said it's an okay sport. Well, I'm going to warn you, there's a company in Door County that's going to have portable ones. You want to have a family outing or whatever, call them up, they'll come to your house, set it up, and they'll have it ready for you. So this is something
like a
on
bounce
the
house, right?
horizon that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So these two people convinced me it's a safe thing, so any questions, I'll let you ask first. If not, I'll move to approve.
I just have a quick question. The axe throwing, is that a separate facility than the other one? Because when I went there, it looks like there's separate doors for each of them, but do they connect inside?
You don't want to throw a beanbag with an axe flying through the air. It could be a problem.
From what I remember from the meeting.
I need a second on the motion, though, before we keep discussing.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion and a second. Discussion, Jay.
Sorry, Mary. The cornhole is actually going to be outside in their parking lot area.
Right, and I looked at that. Does public safety have any concerns about getting to the back of that building?
No.
They did not.
Okay. So then inside, can you access axe throwing from their other facility?
I
So
believe
it's all
so.
open? Okay.
I
just couldn't
believe
tell
so.
when I was looking.
But they end up, the way it's done like in lanes, and the lanes really aren't that deep.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know,
It's
so
yours. Okay.
There's also a door. So one part of the building, they can have team building with a company, and there's a glass door.
So they could close off? Yes. If they needed to, okay. So, but it is interior, they could go from one to the other if the door is open and accessible, okay.
Is this the old furniture store that was a liquor store?
Scan.
Am I in the right area? I didn't check the address, but I'm looking at the view here, and it sure looks like it.
Yeah.
Okay, know where it's at.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to recommend approval. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. 10H, action regarding the preliminary plat of Three Putt Meadows, parcel VA-L202-2. Aaron.
All right, I will share my screen again to bring the plat up.
You have it fixed already?
Not yet. Based upon the discussion that occurred during the zoning request, I guess what I'd like to do is go back to the developer and Brown County Highway, kind of discuss the concerns that came up from the board. So at this point, probably request a motion to table so we can, again, double back with the developer, engineering firm, and Brown County Highway.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to table item H. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carried. 10I, possible action on proposed Ashwaubenon baseball complex upgrades, sponsorship, and potential naming rights, but this is a information only, Mr. Joel or Rex.
Okay, originally we had intended Ashwaubenon Youth Baseball Group to come forward with a proposal that they had presented to the park board about 2 months ago regarding improvements to Diamond 4 at Ashwaubenon Park. So they presented that proposal to the park board, as I mentioned a couple months ago, with the consent from the park board to continue with the process of putting together a plan, if you will, for developing improvements to that site to include some private contributions for naming rights and things of that nature. We were not fully prepared to present the full detailed plan, if you will. However, what we do intend to do as staff is work with Rattler Corporation, who has been our engineer at Ashwaubenon Park for a number of projects, including the baseball complex itself, to develop a master plan. And from that master plan, then an estimate of probable costs can be developed, and then that would give AYB the ability to then kind of solicit and finalize fundraising efforts from that point of view. So what we intend to do is engage with Rattler, develop a master plan with coordination with Ashwaubenon Youth Baseball. Once the master plan has been completed, come back to both Park Board and Village Board with the proposal from AYB as it relates to fundraising for those particular improvements. So tonight is just that's your information for informational purposes. This item will come back before the board at some point in the future with more details on a potential approval.
And I am here to answer any questions.
I think it's a great idea because Rattler did the original design of that facility, and to have them look at it and say, okay, here are some cost estimates, here's what we could do, here's what we couldn't do. I think it's great to do that. And then AYB knows what's going on. They can weigh in, Rattler staff. It'd be a good process, I think. So I encourage you to go ahead with that.
Yeah, where we're at is we've actually got a good start on a major donation already for the facility, but it's a little bit tough because you don't have your targets. So that's why we're working to try to get that. I was actually supposed to get some drawings from Chase Rattler and that today, but it was very short notice, so it didn't happen. So it's best for us to wait. Plus, we are meeting with some other big donors at this point in time, which means then I can come back and give a better presentation as to what we'd be looking for from the village. I mean, the bottom line is when you're getting donations, there has to be some upfront financing, and that's where AYB would be looking for the village's help to just do upfront financing while donations are coming in. I want to get it to the point where I can say how much that is so that we got numbers to make a decision on. That's basically what I want to get to. That's why I'm just not quite prepared for that yet this evening.
Is the circle in yellow that's Diamond 4, that's the only one you're doing, it's not the whole park?
No, we are actually going to look at those other 3 Little League diamonds as well, and possibility of doing them, but it'll probably end up being a phased approach, Gary, just because of donations.
Okay, so you're only looking at, like you got phase 1 goal here, that's the one you're working on now?
Correct.
Okay.
And if donations get better, well, phase 1 could expand and maybe do one of the diamonds and another one. You don't know until you go out there and you start soliciting these donations and that's kind of the phase that we're in right now.
Okay. Information only?
Information only.
Okay, moving on.
Okay. Now, 10J, this breaks my heart. Consider, discuss, act on Director of Public Works position, description, and recruitment profile. Joel.
Thank you for that somber introduction. I think if we move to deny this item, then Doug has to stay in perpetuity. So quick action is necessary. Unfortunately, for the village of Ashwaubenon, we are in the process or need to undertake the process of looking to fill the Public Works Director position with the Village of Ashwaubenon. And as a result of that unfortunate situation, I've put together a position profile, which is more or less an advertisement, if you will, of the position, along with a revised job description. Both of these items were presented to the Finance and Personnel Committee last week, with general approval pending a couple of minor adjustments and changes to each, which I've attempted to do in the draft that is in your packet. In addition to that, these items were forwarded to Doug as the departing member of our staff team for his feedback, and I think Doug would concur that by and large the position description matches kind of the basics, if you will, of this very comprehensive position. Just to kind of give you a quick overview of what our intention here is, as you know, Doug is going to be leaving this Friday. The position is being vacated then at that point. Doug has been very busy over the last few weeks advising his leadership team within the department about roles and responsibilities as we transition to that interim process. We are meeting tomorrow to kind of finalize that effort and try to have everything in order. During that interim period, what we look to do is advertise for this particular position starting as early as this week. So as soon as, if the board is approving of the position profile and the job description, we'll advertise starting this week. We'd look to collect applications over the next 3-week period, to which point we would begin reviewing applications no sooner than July 22nd. If we're able to solicit some quality candidates, at that point, we would begin an internal review process with some select members of our department head team, to which point we would also conduct some screening interviews internally to try to narrow the pool down. Once that pool has been narrowed, hopefully to maybe 2 or 3 top candidates, we would bring those candidates back to village board. And then we would allow the village board and the entire department head team, as well as members of the Public Works leadership team, to participate in that interview process. This being a department head level position under ordinance, village president makes the appointment and the position is ultimately confirmed by the village board. So that's the purpose and the reason behind everyone's involvement with the role. To that point, we're hoping that if all things go extremely well and to schedule, we would be interviewing at the end of August for the position with a possible appointment shortly thereafter. So at the earliest, this individual selected for this role could come into play sometime in September or even October, based on where they're at in their current position and the resignation period they would need to provide. So we will be without a director for a period of a couple, 3 months. With the position profile, again, just kind of general high-level information about the department and the position. I will note the position pay range that is included in that was based on a couple of factors. One, I went through and reviewed current open positions. There's a number of positions that are posted on the Association of Public Works Association website, as well as the League of Wisconsin Municipalities and the Wisconsin City Management Association. And our pay range is fitting within those comparable profiles. So City of Two Rivers, City of Beloit, and then there was one other that I can't recall. In addition to that, annually, our local municipalities in the greater Green Bay suburban area do an annual salary survey of department heads. And so we get a min-max range within that, as well as kind of that midpoint for those positions, and the salary range that's been identified in the position profile matches that comparable rate. In addition to that, we are working through the process with their HR consultant on a compensation study with the point that this pay range would fit within the matrix that will eventually be proposed to the village board here in the next couple of months. As far as the position description goes, and conversations that happened at the Personnel and Finance Committee really revolved around kind of 3 different talking points. One, this is a lot. This position is pretty comprehensive, and yes, it is. And I would say that maybe that's one of the reasons why Doug is had some concerns with it because of the volume of work that's associated with it. So it is a robust position. It is a very important position for the village of Ashwaubenon. And so it is an all-encompassing job description. So there were some concerns about that, but I think if you were to look at any comparable public works director position with another municipality, you'd find that it's very comparable. And then there were also some conversations as it related to the specifics of knowledge as well as job duties go, in particular within the engineering realm. And those were two topics related to transportation design and multimodal transportation or bike and ped design components. So two items that were included or amended based on feedback that was received from the committee were under the essential knowledge, skills, and abilities area. So it would be page 159 of your packet. There is a third bullet point that talks about construction techniques. So it's construction techniques involving streets and roads, transportation, and multimodal designs. We wanted to make sure that we were all encompassing as it related to the design elements of streets, roads, transportation network. And then in addition to that, kind of backing up, we had a conversation regarding the engineering subsection of the position description. So this would be at page 158 in your packet. Under engineering, we added a bullet point that talks about assisting in the preparation and implementation of long-range plans, including but not limited to the comprehensive plan, our strategic plan, comprehensive outdoor rec plan, as well as our pedestrian and bicycle plan. And the idea behind that is that this position will be responsible for carrying out the engineering, the design, the infrastructure needs as it relates to each of those planning elements. So whether it's a bike and ped plan or a comprehensive plan, or their role in helping support Parks, Rec, and Forestry in the development of the corp plan, this position will help with that, because they are really kind of by default the village's engineer. Although we have a village engineer, they provide oversight of that division, and they want to make sure that they provide kind of that consulting level service to not only the village board but other staff within the leadership team. In addition to that, we want to make sure that this individual is carrying out the directives of the board. And those directives are developed by policy or plan. And we feel from an administrative standpoint that we've kind of met that obligation, that this person isn't going out on their own, but under the established policy and plan, carrying out those directives. So with that, I'm sure you'll have questions for Doug as it relates to the position description, or want to provide some feedback to Doug here on his last tour. Otherwise, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have regarding the position description or profile.
So Joel, the one thing that you and I talked about was when you added the transportation and multimodal, Doug always, when we had streets being reconstructed, he was always referencing bike and ped and the corp plan. So that was, we just put it on paper.
Correct.
Well, first of all, Doug, thank you for your years of service and your professionalism and your caring, which is probably the most admirable thing about you, is how much you cared and how much you put into the position. If you look at this position, and granted, you've done an outstanding job managing all of it, but if there was a delineation line where this could be split into multiple directors, could you find a point how that would work? Like water, do you split off water or something, and maybe there's not enough in water? That's kind of where I'm asking, you leaving, we're going to lose all this knowledge. What are your thoughts? Could it be broken into two?
There's a number of things I'd like to say. I'll save some of it for later. I feel most important to this position is a person that can listen and talk and get along with others, because this position touches all the other departments of the village, just like all the other departments touch this one. The first and foremost thing is hire a person that can listen and work together with everybody. The knowledge can come, the knowledge can be brought in from consultants to get assistance, things of that nature. I saw some of the comments from committee level of things that are wished moving forward. Those things are all looked at this point in time. They're going to be looked at moving forward. The design of that, the completion of that, we have numerous consultants that we work with and can get that done. But first and foremost, bring somebody on board that's a good fit with the village, because there are fantastic people here that work here. Fantastic. The staff, I will put the staff against anybody. That would be my recommendation. Delineating off, cutting off areas, very hard for me to give that answer because I'm wired a little screwy. Some people say it's caring. It's my view on the position, and over the past week here, I've talked to all the other public works directors in the Green Bay area. We're all wired screwy because everybody feels generally the same way. You touch all of those different departments, you want to have a working knowledge, not exact, but a working knowledge of all those departments. I was fortunate at the village. I was hired as an assistant village engineer back in 2000. So I was helping the village engineer, and as the years went on, various retirements happened, and there's a short little story I have to share on it. When I was hired, the staff here was very senior level, and I was one of the first hires in a number of years. Steve Kabaki was the administrator at that time. He brought me on board, and all of the staff members treated me like a son, a grandson, or a brother. And it was, oh, look at little Dougie Martin doing his engineering thing. Isn't that cute? And Dougie Martin was out there doing his engineering. And as the years went on, I moved into other areas and gained that knowledge. So you grow up through an organization, you develop that knowledge. And to me, that's what's important, is that you have that knowledge, that you learn it so that you can share it with others and pass it along. Joel and I talked a while back, it's a legacy thing. What you inherit, you want to make better and pass it on. And I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of the projects we've completed here at the village. I'm very proud of the people I've worked with, and that goes through the boards, that goes through the committees, that goes through the committees I've represented outside of the village. And so splitting them off, I would love to give you a direct answer and say, yes, we could break these things off. To oversee, to budget, to have future planning ideas of it, you need to have a little bit of knowledge in each of them. It can all be gained. It takes time, but it can be gained so you can do so. It is a wide-ranging, comprehensive position. It's a difficult position, I'm not going to lie to you. The other thing I wanted to say is sometimes when people hear that somebody's leaving, the initial gut reaction is, okay, there's a problem. There is no problem. Life changes. And a few of you have stopped by to talk to me, and I really appreciate that. Some health issues came up in the family. This is an all-encompassing, on-call, on-point, all-the-time job. I have family that needs me. Very easy decision. Everybody would make the same decision. Very difficult decision because the position is part of me, and as are the people that I work with. So for those listening at home, those who may be interested in applying, things of that nature, there is no problem. It's something in life that came up that impacts a family, and nobody gets to be 80 years, everybody gets to be 80 years old. They don't say, I wish I would have worked more. They say, I wish I would have helped mom, dad, aunt, grandma, grandpa, things of that nature. That's what's happening here. Nothing bad, just a life change. And something where you have to step up and share your time in a different direction at this point. So to me, that's very important because the village means a lot to me. The people that work here mean a lot to me. And I don't want it seen as though that there's some issue out there, because there isn't. The last thing, I'm kind of getting off topic here. I've given a lot of boring presentations, so I feel I can give one decent one, is thank you. From when I was hired by Ted Pamperin to Mary, the village presidents that I've worked for, the boards that I've worked for and worked with on projects have been fabulous. There are just disagreements. There's always disagreements. There's gonna be disagreements from now to the end of time. But when you're done disagreeing, we were always able to move on to the next topic, and you moved on and it all went well. And that's what I appreciate. And that's what I feel the incoming person needs to have also, is that ability to talk, and you can disagree very easily and you can move on, because we're all aimed for the same goal. So let's just keep that goal in mind, and you can work together to get there. There's always going to be points in time, always, where you disagree. We all lead different departments. We have different visions of what. I would love to see all of our roads paved in the village of Ashwaubenon. If we do that, we don't have flap jackets for the public safety department. We don't have the park system that we have. We don't have development going. It's about working together to make the village what it is. And that falls back on having somebody that can work with all of the departments so that we do not only good things in one certain area, but we do it village-wide. Because that's what has made the village popular and a great place to live over these years, is the ability for everybody to adapt and work together. I think that's it, other than to say, and I know she's not watching at home, hi, Maddie. I've never said hi to my daughter in 22 years working here. She's not watching. She doesn't give a rip about what I do, and she thinks I'm boring as all get out. But hi, Maddie. Thank you, Haley. So again, I just wanted to express my gratitude to everybody. I wish all the board was up there that I could say thank you to, but thank you.
Well, thank you, Doug. This is going to be a difficult position to fill. Doug has done a great job. Sorry about that. We need somebody who's going to be a team player. We need somebody who's got the care meter that he's got. And that teamwork, that working together, working with staff here, the support. I think you guys have done a great job in putting together the format of the recruitment, the advertisement, and the selection process. It's not going to be easy out there right now. It's very, very difficult to recruit public works directors. It's very difficult to recruit any municipal position at this particular point in time. We have a tremendous challenge here in doing it, and with that, I'd like to just say thanks for all you've done. And is Doug going to be involved at all in helping us at all with the selection process at all? I'm just a question.
Well, we didn't ask Doug specifically, but I would anticipate Doug will be preoccupied with some of his personal attendings. So,
okay.
To somewhat address, I think, Jay's concern with the position, I think one of the things that we looked at, or at least I look at from an administrative point of view, is scope of control or reporting structure. And we have to look at that within the entirety of the organization chart. So if we were to add additional department heads, that expands obviously my scope of control and my direct reports. There could be opportunities within the department itself, and as you transition between staff members, this is a great opportunity for that. And Doug will openly admit he's got an exceptional supervisory management team within Public Works. This could be a great opportunity to get them to step up and stay within the scope of scope of authority or control, if you will, with the number of direct reports for the department head, but maybe we can look at position profiles for each of those positions and see what could be added to their positions or and removed from this position, or what authority could those individuals take on that could help lessen the burden for the department head, but yet provide opportunities for advancement and development of those staff that are currently on board.
Yeah, obviously, the only reason for my question is when I look at the, you know, the scope and the responsibilities, and I start to get to pages and pages of responsibilities, hence it raises me to ask that question.
Yeah, it's a great question.
I mean, it's, I know how great of a job Doug is, and yeah, it's going to be difficult to replace him. So that's just where my question was coming from, is this a point in time when we could split duties and somehow make multiple positions? I understand that it's ideal to have one position. I get that. My concern is the ability to find somebody that has a depth of knowledge like a Doug to be able to manage that.
Jan, what we were planning on doing, we have a transition meeting coming up tomorrow, and Joel, Mary, and I have a meeting following up after that, just to kind of shoot the breeze, for lack of a better term. Right. And it's just to share some ideas of possibly how divvying it up into two positions or something like that difficult, but maybe there's some way of moving some items around. Over 22 years, the village has grown a lot. Yeah. And some things that were in this position were unique because at that time it worked, and they've stuck over the years. But maybe there's some things that need to be moved off more into maintenance roles and things of that nature. But we'll talk it through and see if we can't get some ideas pulled together to assist moving forward.
I take it that, Joel, by putting this together, your recommendation would be to continue with the Director of Public Works. I think you need a point person, and I think, as you've stated before, with the support staff you have, you're only as good as the employees that work for you and support you and that type of thing. And I think you have a good core there. Mm-hmm. That being said, it's going to be tough to replace Doug. There's no question about it. There's going to be a learning curve. It's going to take the support of all the department heads working in concert. But that has been one of the things that has always worked here in Ashwaubenon, is everyone helps everyone out, and there's trust, respect, and confidence in the organization. So it's not going to be easy, but I think it can be done, and one point person probably makes the most sense at this point in time.
I just have a couple of nutsy boltsy things about the position description and the advertisement. But before that, I just want to say a couple things for Doug. I was working here as a Parks and Recreation Director when he was hired, and it was great having Doug on staff. We had Jerry Lopez, who was the Public Works Director at that time, and then Doug came in, young guy with lots of energy and lots of things. And I always noticed when I went into his office, it was very, very organized. And I always wanted to sneak in there when he wasn't in and move stuff around and see if you would notice it. So I enjoyed working with you all those years, and I wish you luck with your family and the health issues you have to deal with. And I just want to remind you to take good care of yourself, too, as you go through all of that, because we want to see you be healthy and happy as well. So good luck, and we're sad to lose you. And going back to the position description, I only have a couple comments. On the advertisement piece, with skills and experience in the orange box, it says in there the 5 years of related public works experience is preferred, but in the description, position description, it says that it's required. Or it doesn't say required, but it says it's a must, I think, is how it's listed. So those two need to be reconciled, I think. And to me, I think it should be required, something required rather than preferred, because it's a huge, as Doug said, and everyone's saying, it's a huge position, and I think we'd want to make sure we have someone with at least 5 years of experience and required rather than preferred.
I think I'd suggest, Tracy, that you leave the word preferred so that we have the crack in the door. then that way, yeah, that can be what we're looking for. But if you leave it preferred and you find, you could find the ideal candidate, and let's say they've got 4 years of experience, now you can't hire them, so that's kind of right. I would be saying stay with preferred.
Okay, then maybe you want to make sure the wording is the same in both those, because I think in the other one, it kind of sounds to me like it's required more than the preferred statement. And I'm glad to see the grant writing experience was in there. And Doug, my question to you is, how much did you do in your position with grant writing for either state, federal, or private grants?
A pretty fair amount. A lot on the state and federal end. A few examples: Oneida Street, Cormier Road, South Broadway. A lot of the STP urban funding through the state. We've been fortunate over the years to get for a lot of our road reconstruction. So pretty heavy on that end. When it comes to the trail systems, things of that nature, Park and Rec Rex has done a fantastic job getting those grants. Steve has done a fantastic job on the stormwater end, getting the stormwater grants for the ponds. So the grant writing aspect is a solid piece to have in there. We have other folks that are very strong in doing so, but to have that knowledge is beneficial.
Okay, it's listed as grant writing assist. Would you say that would be a good way to list it, or that it's a more prominent, rather than assist, it would be like you're doing grant writing, or do you think that's fine to have it written that way?
I think it's fine, because a lot of them work in conjunction with other a couple other departments or a couple other employees.
Okay. I think that was my questions. Thank you.
I noticed you didn't have the provision to walk on water listed, or walk on stormwater anyway.
Doug did suggest that, but I thought we'd keep that one out.
And I just want to say I had the opportunity to talk to Doug this afternoon, which I appreciate his time when I know he's busy trying to close up things. I had a couple of concerns in the village here that Doug and I have been working with, and I just want to say you can assure that Doug's got everything taken care of after he leaves on what is going to happen around here till we get somebody in that position. So, Doug, I appreciate your time. Good luck in the future.
Okay, does anybody want to make a motion?
What's the motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the revised Director of Public Works position description and recommend recruitment of the open position as presented by the village manager.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the recruitment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. 10K, action on 2022-2023 retail alcohol license renewal.
Mary, I'm going to recuse myself from any discussion or action on this item.
Okay, thank you. Alcohol license renewal for Lakes Venture LLC, DBA Fresh Time Market number 707. Chris.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve that. All in favor, say aye.
Yeah.
Aye. And we have one abstaining. Okay, thank you. 10L, action on 2022-2023 retail alcohol license renewal for Creative Edge Media LLC, DBA Edge VR Arcade.
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. 10M, action on the request to use park development funds for Argonne Wetland Delineation. Rex.
Well, we've been doing quite a bit of work out at Argonne over the last couple of years. That includes a new playground, putting in the pathway that parallels Argonne Street, a lot of ash removal a lot of new tree planting. If you've been by just in the last week, you see we planted over probably at least 20 or 25 more trees in that park, trying to reforest some of what's been cut down. Whenever we are there, it is very noticeable the amount of people that are walking along that trail that's been put in. Not only along that trail, but along the back of the park and through the park. It's for a small park, it's pretty darn busy. As such, with it being talked about in our comprehensive outdoor recreation plan about doing more trail work somehow in Argonne, we felt this would be a good time to try and get that ball rolling. Basically, for us to put a trail in along the backside and potentially through into the woods, similar to how we did Sherwood Forest with the boardwalk, we would need to do a wetland delineation. And what that basically means is what's wetland and what's not. That's going to determine what kind of boardwalk goes in, where it goes in, and basically what the project might cost moving forward if that moves along. It is certainly eligible for park development funds with the proximity to the Titletown district. The whole park is eligible literally for anything because it's so close. And the people and the business employees within the Titletown district would certainly be able and would use Argonne for walks, as well as the neighborhood. So request this evening is to start that process using Stantec at a cost of $4,500 to do the wetland delineation. Park Board did approve that at the Park Board meeting unanimously. I should briefly mention that the Packers may or may not be involved in this program. That's yet to be determined. They own part of that woods. It's part of the whole Cabela's property. And so we will be approaching them in the near future, asking if they would be interested in having that trail go on part of their property as well to expand that. Don't know if they're interested in that or not, but it's certainly a worthwhile question to ask them. Whether they do or whether they don't, we still need the wetland delineation on our piece of property. So that's what we're asking for this evening. The trigger to get the ball rolling on this would be when we get an answer from the Packers on what they envision that their section of woods turn into. So,
Rex, does that mean that red line could move over to the north side then to make that walkway or the trail longer?
The red line could go more northward towards Cabela's.
Okay.
If the Packers would be interested in having us do that.
So you're looking for a motion to approve the use of park development funds for the Argonne Park delineation is really what you're looking for, but you're going to hold off until you talk to the Packers to initiate the agreement per se?
That is correct.
You know, I think this is an excellent opportunity to take a passive park, add something like this. That Sherwood Park path is getting more and more use, and I think you have upgraded that thing significantly, and it's an attribute. This would be an attribute to this particular neighborhood as well, I think. So I think I made a motion.
I second.
Okay, motion and a second to approve the use of park delineation or park funds for Argonne delineation. Any other comments?
I just have a question that's kind of related to this. I don't know who to direct it towards. Have the Packers decided, as I know in the past, since all the Titletown started to become developed, there was talk of certain maybe walkways from the Titletown area towards the Cabela's area. Has there been any more discussion, or do they know what any kind of walking paths that are going to go and where they're going to go?
There's a number of us that could answer that question. Doug, you know what? With you leaving shortly, I think you need to have the honors to answer this question.
There are a number of options still being reviewed and discussed. What was waiting was the first phase of the Titletown development was we were waiting for that to wrap up so that we knew where the connection points were. There were a number of different thoughts over the years, just how the walk-in maneuvers were going to be happening through the first phase of the development. They're now finishing that first phase. We have our connection points basically at Marley Lane, if you will. So there's discussions of a little bit of relocating the access road west of Marley to Argonne Street to be able to get a sidewalk. There's a crossing going across Marley right now, but then getting a sidewalk on the south side or on the business side, going all the way down to Argonne so that it can tie into the sidewalks at Cabela's and you can head west from there.
Right.
There's also the reconstruction of Brookwood Drive and getting sidewalks along that area, tying into the development and heading down to Argonne Street as well. It used to be at the onset that there was going to be a centralized sidewalk or walkway or veranda going through the middle of the development. That never materialized. It went out to the edges, so that's moving forward. That's where we're going. That's how we're going to be getting the foot traffic down to the Cabela's area, if you will, or moving it westward.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 10N.
Thank you.
Information regarding multifamily units in the village of Ashwabnen. Aaron.
This is just an informational piece based on some discussion that occurred at the board earlier this year regarding multifamily units being proposed in the village and being constructed. Really taking the temperature of where we are in terms of the village as compared to peer communities in the metro area, as well as providing some background demographic information on what is driving some of the interest and growth in multifamily units, not just in Ashwaubenon, but really across Wisconsin and across the nation. So the information in the report is for your consideration and review, but is for information only.
So I'd like to just thank you, Aaron, for putting this together. I mean, this is data that's always going to remind when we're trying to make these decisions, we're doing planning, it's like, okay, because of the developments that are happening, it seems like we must have only apartments in Ashwaubenon now. No, that's not true. So this is very helpful to also be able to judge to how we are to other communities in that. So thank you very much, Aaron, for putting this together.
Very welcome.
Okay. Moving on. Thank you. 10O, action on amending ordinance 7-4-111, parking in parks or parking lots. Patrick.
This was a staff request for a draft of an ordinance relating to the staff's ability to create parking regulations in village-owned lots or village-owned parking lots within parks. Currently, right now, the ordinance states that there's only a certain time limit that someone can't park there. I think it's 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. So it's just the time limit where you cannot park overnight in a village-owned lot, like out here from Village Hall, or an actual parking lot in a park. What this ordinance does is gives the staff a directive and discretion to create parking, further parking restrictions and signs. So, for example, if there's an employee-only lot that people have been parking in, the staff can have the discretion to create signs that say employee-only lot, and public safety can then regulate that. So rather than bringing this back, and why this is worded like this, where it says there's no parking contrary to a sign thereof or thereon, rather than having staff come back and request a specific ordinance for these types of lots for every lot that they want to enforce, this kind of gives the broad discretion for staff just to create it on their own ability to restrict times or other specific locations or no parking at all. This was kind of a concern for some employee lots where they might have been filled or by other individuals or patrons in just the public parking in lots. And in some specific employee lots, I think the goal in some of these is to have staff create signs that say, for example, no parking Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 p.m. Well, that's just an example, but that's what this ordinance can authorize the staff to do. Happy to answer any questions on that if there are.
The only question I have on this is this 365 365 days a year?
It is. So, right, so Gary, rather than staff coming back here and requesting a specific restriction for every single lot, this would basically just allow staff to create it on their own behalf, create the restriction on their own behalf.
The only reason I'm asking that, there's a particular street on here that you're, McCrary Street, they use that for a parking lot for everything.
Right.
And if it's 365, that'll clean up that.
And that section of the ordinance, Gary, was already there. I didn't amend that or put that in there on that ordinance. The only addition that I added was the bolded language on there where it says, except contrary to a sign thereon or thereof or whatever it says. So the Quarry Street parking has already been, I guess, adopted by the board.
Does the safety department give approval to somebody that's going to park a motorhome someplace on a street for a period of more than a short period of time?
If it's a violation of a parking, well, if it's a parking violation, I think they have the discretion just to ticket it itself. So if it's determined that parking, like a mobile home can park on the street lawfully overnight, then it shouldn't be a problem. But my understanding, I don't believe there's overnight parking full time. So if there's any kind of an issue, I think like an RV or something.
This is strictly for our property, meaning
Our parking lot.
Schwaben Park. All right,
Sure.
the question I had does not pertain to this, so
I see.
let's forget about it.
So to answer your question, yeah, the ordinance does leave room for approval from village employees. So if there is a situation where within, I guess, the restriction of the parking sign, the village employees can give approval, public safety or village employees.
So Patrick, for instance, let's say Rex has a big event going on at Ashwabnen Park, and he wants to block off a section of the parking lot so no one can park there a certain time. That would allow this without him having to
Yes.
get any approval for that. So it just adds flexibility to our staff that they can do things, or restrict parking as needed for different events and activities
So
and problem areas.
Absolutely right. It can create temporary signs or permanent signs.
Okay.
Yes.
And what's brought this forward has been the success of the baseball stadium during the workday when there's games going on. You may have noticed it with some of the baseball games going on village board nights. All of a sudden, the place fills up and you can't get in here. So there's some temporary signs that'll be put out on barricades on game days, so that staff is able to, patrons are able to get in here and do their business. On weekends, on nights when there aren't meetings, on after hours, perfectly fine to park it full and use it. Just during the business times, keeping the areas open for access.
Okay, I'll move approve ordinance 7-4-111 as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 7-4-111. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. 10P, action on amending ordinance 9-1-1, removing possession of a switchblade knife. Patrick?
In 2016, Wisconsin passed a law basically saying that you do not need a concealed carry to carry a switchblade. This is basically just updating our ordinance to comply with state law. Feel free to carry your switchblades.
As we have no provision here to modify this, I'll make a motion to approve it as submitted.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve ordinance 9-1-1. Any comments? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Number 11, items for next agenda. If anybody has anything, please contact us. Number 12, closed session items. During the meeting, the village board, the Village of Ashwabnen may convene into closed session pursuant to A, B, C, and D, which is all listed in your packet. The village board may thereafter reconvene in open session pursuant to Wisconsin statute, section 19.85, parent 2, to report the results of the closed session and consider the balance of the agenda. I I need a motion, please, to go into closed session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to go into closed session. Roll call, please.
President Kardasky.
Yes.
Trustee Service.
Yes.
Trustee Paul. Yep. Trustee Zerbal.
Yes.
Trustee Krieger.
Yes.
Trustee Kubaki.
Aye.
And Trustee Flukie.
Aye.
Thank you. We're in closed session. We'll go in the other room.
This conference is no longer being recorded.
Either way.